This episode of HIPcast is brought to you by Datavant. Datavant protects, connects, and delivers the world's most precious data. As the leader in data logistics for healthcare, they enable organizations to achieve their boldest ambitions and advance human health. Join Datavant in fixing the health data supply chain. Datavant securely and compliantly moves relevant health data from where it sits to where it needs to be. Great data logistics gives providers whole patient health data effectively assembled for specific requests and protected to ensure patient privacy. Built on decades of release of information expertise, their products and services create a frictionless experience for managing the flow of patient data. Datavant ensures relevant information is provided only to those who should have it. Learn more about Datavant's offerings by visiting www.datavant.com. And welcome to today's episode of HIPcast. It's a little bit different in the order that we're used to. I get to read the introduction because Shannan is sitting in the car at a hospital parking garage. So the timing is kind of fun to talk about biomedical informatics. Having a wonderful hair day, got the hat on. I should have wore a hat myself. So
that would have been supportive.
You look totally fine. But today I want to welcome Dr. Susan Fenton. Welcome to HIPcast, Dr. Fenton.
Thank you. Very happy to be here.
And I'm going to read Dr. Fenton's biography, which is a fun biography. So I did not prepare ahead of time to read this. So let's work through it, and then we will get started. So Dr. Susan Fenton is a professor and vice dean for education at the University of Texas School of Biomedical Informatics in Houston, Texas, where she's responsible for their graduate certificate, master's, and doctoral degree programs. She currently leads the $9.7 million Gaining Equity in Training for Public Health Informatics and Technology Workforce Development Award from the ONC. Dr. Fenton has received multiple teaching honors, including the University of Texas Regents Outstanding Teaching Award in 2019, membership in the University of Texas Kenneth Shine Academy of Health Science Education in 2020, the University of Texas System Distinguished Teaching Professor in 2020, and most recently, the 2021 UT Health President's Scholar Award for Teaching. Dr. Fenton leads the Center for Quality Healthcare IT Improvement, focusing on assisting providers in low-resource settings with their HIT needs. Her research focuses on the use and implementation of ICD-11. Shannan, that's going to be a fun conversation. Workforce development, and the optimization of HIT for preventative and chronic care delivery in low-resource settings. She serves on regional, national, and international professional association committees and boards. Again, welcome, Dr. Fenton, to HIPcast.
Thank you. So happy to be here. I've never done a podcast before, so yay!
I'm so glad you
something else to check off my list.
Yes, this is awesome. This is awesome. We love Seth and I. Again, just to remind the listeners, we started this podcast in support of students who need scholarship from the Tennessee Health Information Management Association Foundation, and so any funds that we raise from sponsors or any donations go directly to our scholarships, and so it's perfect that you are, that you're an academic dean. We're going to talk through a lot of things today that are, really complex things, but that is who we are as health information professionals, and what we deal with and handle and manage and, just secure and make sure that things are available. All of this is very complex, and it's only more and more complex, which I find very exciting. So today we're going to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and some workforce preparedness for that. We're going to talk about your journey to becoming an academic dean. I feel like just talking to you, if I could just get a little on me, I'll be smarter before we leave the call. And then that's a Southern saying, by the way. Can I get a little on me? That's a Southern saying. And then we'll talk a little bit about the ONC-funded project that you are managing, because for a couple of reasons, I want to know more about what you're doing there, but also just to encourage health information professionals to recognize the value of connectedness to the ONC. So we're so glad you're here. Thank you for joining. And also thank you for doing your first podcast with HIPcast for health information professionals. We're excited.
I am too. I
That's
am
right.
too.
Well, it is interesting for me to have all this Tennessee stuff in the background because I believe Tennessee is the real UT. But after reading all of that University of Texas stuff, I will at this point yield to you for UT. And
Okay, well, and I'm native Texan, right? So I'm born and bred in Texas. So I got the
all
Southern
right.
thing going on too.
You
So,
Welcome to
yeah.
the SEC is what I can
That's
say.
right.
It's going to be a
Okay.
wild ride. So we know that one of your areas that you work through is workforce development. And Shannan mentioned AI, which is the buzz term. We can't have a podcast in 2024 without talking about AI at least once.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts around preparing the current workforce for AI and even those that are currently in school?
Wow. And this is something I hear about a lot, and we're really focusing on at the UT Health McWilliams School is how do we put out materials to prepare the current workforce, and also how can we do this with our students? I would say probably the most important thing is the focus on the lifelong learning. And talking to staff and employees and saying, yes, things are going to change, but things have always changed.
Yes.
It's never been the same. And so, yes, there are some new skills you're going to have to learn. You're going to have to learn how to work with a new technology, all of those kinds of things. But if you are willing to do that, and some people call it upskilling, if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to take that on, meet that challenge, you're going to have a job. You're going to be employable because the human equation is still there. I heard earlier this year, I heard the colonel who's in charge of AI for the Air Force talk. I got to go to a conference where he was talking, and he came out, and the first thing he said was, "It is not magic, it's math."
Yes. So
And
smart.
that was what he had to say about AI. And so it can do some incredible things because computers have always been able to do math better than us, right? That's why we have calculators.
Sure.
And so they've always been able to do that. So the computers are doing things that computers do well, but they're still just programmed. We still need the human in that equation. In terms of the students, it's really, okay, we're gonna teach you some things now. And then what we want you to do is to recognize that this is just the beginning of your learning journey. And that,
Smart.
you're not going to get out of school and go, ooh, I can do it.
All done.
That you're going to have to keep learning for the rest of your life. And I think really that's the important thing, is that people just have to keep learning.
Yeah, absolutely. One of my favorite quotes was from a physician who said that 50% of what you're taught in medical school is either wrong or outdated. But the problem is no one can tell you which 50% that is. And that applies to all of us, right? Things are quickly changing. So what I learned today in school may not be applicable once I get out into the workforce 6 months, a year, 2 years down the road. So I have to keep evolving to see what's happening and to keep up.
Correct. And, I think now it's now true for for health information professionals. I've heard it said about computer science that what they learn when they start the program is obsolete by the time they graduate.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't say it's 100%. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's 100% like that for us, but to a certain extent, yeah, you have to, because while you've been in the program, the world's been moving on.
Yes.
So
it's very true.
You mean learning about linear inches and file rooms isn't relevant anymore? Come on now, that was great education.
You know what, Seth? I'm going to tell a little story about when I realized that we were going to have to keep educating the workforce. So I was working, this was when I worked for the VA, and we implemented barcoded record tracking. Okay, so, but we still had a file room, right? So barcoded record tracking, and we had a clerk, and in the stroke of a key, we taught him how to use the system, how to check out the records, all of that kind of stuff. He forgot to select the records that were not going to be, that we hadn't found, that weren't going to the clinics first. And so at the stroke of a key,
Oh boy,
he checked out every single record to all the clinics.
oh boy.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh boy.
And I actually made him fix it himself. I actually made him go back and redo every single record. And it was only about 1,000 records or so, right?
Oh my goodness.
Because it was a large VA medical center, and we had large clinics, but he never made the mistake again. And it was at that point that I said, okay, his title may be file clerk, but we got to do a different job description here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Because it did not have anything in it about knowing how to work with the computers.
Interesting.
And so, yeah. And that was when it was like, okay, our job descriptions have to keep up. We have to keep revising. So anyway, yeah, that was my.
Yeah, and I think that's true, Susan. It's even more true today. Well, it's not more true. It's equally true today. It's just that those job descriptions should be reviewed probably every 6 months rather than every year. Or some folks don't review their job descriptions until they need to replace a person. So, but our job, even as a health information tech, right? Even as a chart completion analyst, your job looks different today than it did probably when you were hired and that job description said X, right? So that's such a good point.
Correct.
Yeah, and I love the conversation about training our workforce on artificial intelligence. You know, I gave a presentation in Kansas a few weeks ago, and I said, tell me some thoughts, just shout out some thoughts about AI. And, I heard increased efficiency, worried about it taking our jobs. And one lady in the back said, it's the invisible monster. And I was like, it's not the invisible monster, but it was a great answer.
Oh my goodness. And I know people, I know people feel like that about it. And it's interesting. So I've started trying to spend 10 to 15 minutes every day. My institution has approved Copilot. We can work with Copilot. So I try now to spend 10 to 15 minutes every day with Copilot.
Nice.
Just figuring out, what can I have it do for me? How can I make it work for me?
Yes.
Right? Because if it's working for me, that takes some of the scariness away from it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I love the conversation. It's something I hope AHIMA kind of latches onto and starts to do more advanced education, even formal education and programs. So I'm moving on from the fun conversation of artificial intelligence, which we three obviously all love. Let's talk about, how in the world do you become a dean of an academic program? How do you become an academic dean from health information? What's your journey? And maybe before you do that, our favorite question to ask is, what's your health information journey? How did you become a health information professional? But then as you tell us that, how did you fund the program? How did you move from that to the dean position?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sure. Well, so my story begins a long, long time ago in a different, actually in the mid 80s. Okay, that's how old I am. But I was trying to decide even if I wanted to go to school or if I just wanted to go get a job. But I was looking to do something. I knew I like to travel. I knew I might want to move somewhere else at some point in my life. And so I was looking for something. I was looking for a job where I would be trained for something, but that I could take anywhere, right? I could go anywhere. And my mom was an ART, an accredited record technician.
Nice.
And so I talked with her, and I said, well, that's something I can take. I don't think I want to be a coder, but that's a fallback position. I could always be a coder, right? So I started at Wharton County Junior College with Mary King. So to all of those people who are thinking, oh, I just have an associate's degree or whatever, or, I have quite a long journey for my education. And Mary King was just a brilliant educator. And after I had been there a little over one semester, she said, I really think you should go get a bachelor's degree. I think you need to go somewhere else and get a bachelor's degree. So I went to UTMB in Galveston and got my bachelor's degree there. And even before, what was really funny was we had a guest speaker who came in. She had a master's in business administration. And I thought, I would like to be like her one day. And so even before I had graduated with my bachelor's degree, I was like, okay, now I'm going to go get a master's degree. So when I got my bachelor's degree, I started working in the Texas Medical Center, and I went to the University of Houston and got my master's degree. I got a master's in business administration with a concentration in MIS. And that was in 1990. And then at that point, I moved. I got married and I moved, and I went to Boston, and then I went to Virginia, and then I went to Minnesota. And during that time, I worked for the Veterans Health Administration, both in the facility, that I was talking about earlier, and then I went to their central office, and I worked in a policy position as a staff member in central office. And it was there that I actually realized, so this is sort of my guiding light. We are the center of the universe. Health information professionals, we are the center of the universe. Because as valuable as the clinicians are, they cannot deliver the best care unless they have the right data and information in the right format at the right time.
That's great.
And so, so that was my realization was, we're the center of it all. And then I was like, I think I really want a doctoral degree. I really want to do a doctoral degree. So, right, from somebody who was like, do I work or do I go to school? I'll take an associate's degree. Now I'm going to a doctoral degree.
I'm laughing because I recognize you, Susan.
We've had the same conversation.
So in 2002, it took me a while. I had a family. I was working. It took me a while to find something that would fit. And in 2002, I went back to school, and I graduated with my PhD, actually in health services research, because none of the informatics schools would let me go part-time or online. Oh. How's that?
Interesting. Wow, what a change.
So, so graduated in 2007. And then, in 2009, this little thing called the HITech Act was passed.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And because of all the work that I had done in the VA, and I had worked at Mayo for a little while, and so I realized that the biggest struggle that we were going to encounter with the HITech Act was a lack of qualified workforce.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And so, so it turned out at that point, I was looking, okay, where can I go to work? And Texas State University had an opening. So I became an assistant professor at Texas State University in San Marcos under Sue Biederman, and just had a blast. We got one of the ONC university-based training grants, which was in and of itself exciting. And the place that I'm at now, the Mac Williams School of Biomedical Informatics, they were actually a subcontractor to us for that grant. And that was how I got to know the people where I work now. About 4 years later, they called me and they said, we're recruiting. Are you interested? And I thought, well, informatics, it's something different, and biomedical informatics specifically. And so moved over to the school, and that's where I've been ever since.
That's amazing.
Fun journey. It's pretty fascinating to hear. And there's really 2 points that pop out of my mind there of the lifelong learning piece that you started out with, and then you continued through this conversation of how you made it to be academic dean. That's a huge piece for HI professionals to understand. That it is not something that you just go and finish all in one big thing and then you become the dean. It is a lifelong journey of work and education and adding things in. Shannon, I laughed when you mentioned the doctoral side because she was first, and then I said, you know what, I kind of want to do it too. So I went and got a doctoral degree.
It was peer pressure.
Yeah. Luckily, the pandemic worked out in my favor because I thought, this is the rare time in my life that everything's online. I don't have to take the entrance exams because all the centers were closed. And I thought, well, work's pretty slow at this moment, so I'm going to go do a doctoral degree in the middle of this madness. And it worked out well. You know, it's one of those things that was really positive. And I encourage all of our listeners that are considering that next step in their education career, whether it's the associate's degree, the baccalaureate, or the master's, or all the way up to the doctoral. And there's a few people that I know that listen to this that were pushing towards a doctoral degree. This message is for you. Get to school.
Here's something that, I get students who ask me all the time, is it worth it? And here's what I'm going to tell them is, at each step, right, doors were opened to me because I had gone for that additional education that I did not expect to be open to me. Like, I didn't even see the possibility when I was studying in that degree. Like, I never ever envisioned I would be an academic dean. All right. That was never ever in any of my thought processes when I was in school, but I couldn't if I didn't have the doctoral degree. I got the job. Part of the reason I got the job at VA Central Office when I transferred from the medical center to the central office was because I had a master's degree and they were looking for someone who was master's prepared. Yep. All right. But I didn't get the master's degree for that right. I had no idea that this opportunity was going to come up and that, it was never in my calculus. So no, I would say if it's something you're interested in and it's something you want to do, you should go and you should do it, because not only will you more than likely meet the goals that you have set for it, you will find other doors that you never expected to be opened.
100%. And that you mentioned again, the second point that I thought about there was the fact that you had connections and relationships that led to your next position and next piece. And that's something also that we need to know. Don't burn your bridges.
Okay. Students and young professionals. So I've lived in Houston, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, San Marcos, Texas, Temple, Texas. I've lived in Virginia. I've lived in Massachusetts, and I've lived in 2 different cities in Minnesota. Once have I gotten a job where I didn't already know someone.
Wow.
Once.
Networking, education experience, and networking.
In over 35 years. Yes.
Takes all 3.
Yeah.
Takes all 3.
Yeah. Yeah. So just, get out there, meet people, talk to them. Because you can't, it's like.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
That is great advice. You mentioned the ONC. I wanted to ask about that you're currently managing an ONC-funded project that is titled Gaining Equity and Training for Health Informatics and Technology. And I think this is the 3rd workforce development project you've been involved in. Can you tell us about this and any other workforce initiatives that you're engaged with?
Sure. So this one is actually a result of the COVID funding that was passed in 2021, maybe, I think. Anyway, they passed a big COVID bill. Big surprise, right? And the ONC got this money. And the focus of it is we need more public health informatics professionals who actually look like the population.
Yeah.
All right. Because one of the things that we noticed during the pandemic was when you're trying to send those messages, you have to send those messages in ways that are culturally appropriate or societally appropriate. And it's not just about, in Texas, this is how it's going to look. Houston, Texas is is the most international city in the country. So people come from all over. However, if you go to the border, to Laredo or to Brownsville, they are 90% plus Hispanic. And they have a different culture down there, right? So if you're trying to do public health interventions there to get people immunized or to have them do screenings for cancer or whatever. It has to be appropriate to that area.
Yes.
And the way you get that is to have those people in public health and in public health informatics, right? And so this training is to is targeting increasing underrepresented populations and training them for public health informatics. Now, the biggest challenge is when you say the word informatics, a lot of people look confused.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Confused or scared, right?
Confused or scared, right? Yeah. And I'm actually this week, so we've partnered with 9 different minority serving institutions across the state of Texas. And this week, I'm actually in Tyler, Texas, where we're having a boot camp where we're actually doing that training. So we've recruited undergraduate students and we're trying to say, this is what public health informatics is. They're going to do a public health informatics research project. And many of them will not continue in public health informatics, but some of them will. So we had a student who did the boot camp at Prairie View A&M University, and she was actually in their program that helps them get into medical school. After doing the boot camp and then participating in an internship, which was actually out in a public health agency, she's totally changed her focus. She has now decided instead of going to medical school, she's going to go to law school because she wants to work in public health policy.
Wow.
She wants to, yeah. She said, I learned that it's all about the policy. Like if you don't have the policies in place, things don't happen.
Wow.
So she says, I'm going to go make those policies. I'm like, you go, girl.
That's right.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So it is.
Yeah.
It
And,
is.
it's interesting, this workforce development and talking about underrepresented populations. But before that, you mentioned, having people that look like the people they're doing the informatics on in that particular. But, it's not even just about how you look. If I think about this, I live in rural Tennessee, and, it's not in my small town, it's not an incredibly diverse population. Probably 6 months of the year. Then 6 months of the year, we have a lot of migrant workers who come up because we have agricultural, a lot of farmers around. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, it's really, mostly white with some African American or Black people, some Asian people, and a few other probably wouldn't even register statistically. Mm-hmm. And then we have the Latino population, but outside of even those different ethnic origins or races, you have to consider the culture from a city or an urban versus a rural area, because we don't communicate the same. And that's a big deal. If you have a big city person that comes in to do informatics in a rural area, that person seems like an outsider and it's hard. So you need someone that can talk about, whatever they do in rural communities, right? Like if it were up to Seth, we would be talking about frying Spam, which is disgusting, but he likes it, right?
So good. So delicious.
But the point is, you have to have that diversity. Has to be not just how you look, but what's your background altogether, just culturally speaking, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Absolutely. You are 100% correct. And if we can, one of our goals with some of the things that we do with the undergraduate institutions that are along the border and engaging with these minority serving institutions is very often they have students who are from the areas around there, and they know people, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
They have name recognition.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, that stuff counts. It counts.
Yeah, it does.
It does. It counts a lot. It counts a lot. Well, I want to kind of pull, I know we're about to wrap this up, but I want to kind of bring attention to something you mentioned early, because I think this is super cool. And it's the first time that I can remember us having this conversation with anyone, on the podcast or even otherwise, I think. Your mother was an ART. So this is a family tradition. And that's the first time, Seth, we've not had anybody else come into our profession that we've talked to. That has been because they had a family member doing it already, right?
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Let's pass that
Yeah.
down, right? Because even now for, like for my grandchildren, health information management looks so much different than it did when I went to school. And, one of my granddaughter is very STEM oriented. She likes to build things and robots and do code and things like that. So 5 years old. So I'm like, okay, well, health information management is a STEM program now. So by the time she's ready for that kind of learning, there's no telling what we'll be doing, with the advances in technology. So, so that's really awesome. Seth, I'm just gonna kind of wrap this up unless you have any further thoughts or questions you good?
No, I think this is great. This has been a fantastic conversation.
Susan, before I wrap it up,
I have one thing. So
I was going to ask, do you have any final thoughts?
Yeah, I do. So workforce development. So within Texas, we have built something, or we've created something called the Texas Health Informatics and Technology Consortium. And what it is it's all of the educational HI, so health information professionals, so HIM, informatics, health information management. We created a consortium, and we've actually gone to the Texas Workforce Commission, and they are supporting our efforts. We're right now doing an employer needs assessment survey, but our goal is to build a pipeline that starts in middle school and stretches all the way through to the doctoral degree. So I want to encourage people. Awesome. I know a lot of times there's like, oh, the federal government should be doing this. The federal government does a lot. But I think it means a lot more if you can center it at the state. And we've gotten a lot of traction from the state. Like you said, Shannan, because we are STEM now, there is no, this AI in healthcare.
Oh, yeah.
That is us. That is us. And so, so I would encourage people, if you're thinking about, well, what can we do? How can we get something started? I would say go to your state workforce commissions and see if you can engage with them. So,
well, Susan, thank you so much for coming on. I think that's great advice. You are fascinating. You have definitely lived a fascinating journey in your professional life. So I can imagine that your personal life kind of parallels that. We appreciate you coming. We appreciate the work that you do for the students, but also for the profession and how you further the profession and really the reputation of health information professionals in the market. So thank you for all that you do, Seth.
Absolutely. And thank you to our sponsor today. This episode of HIPcast was brought to you by Datavant. Datavant protects, connects, and delivers the world's most precious data. As the leader in data logistics for healthcare, they enable organizations to achieve their boldest ambitions and advance human health. Join Datavant in fixing the health data supply chain. Datavant securely and compliantly moves relevant health data from where it sits to where it needs to be. Great data logistics gives providers whole patient health data effectively assembled for specific requests and protected to ensure patient privacy. Built on decades of release of information expertise, their products and services create a frictionless experience for managing the flow of patient data. Datavant ensures relevant information is provided only to those who should have it. Learn more about Datavant's offerings by visiting www.datavant.com. Shannan, until next time, my friend.
I'll see you next time, buddy.